Now it is. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I asked him before I left, I said, hey, I have
All
an
right.
impression. He said,
You want it like that?
yeah, that's fine.
What do you think? Zoom out a bit.
I mean, I
Doesn't
question.
matter what you do, you're still gonna get an old man.
It wasn't that
I think
bad.
that's
Not
better.
gonna
I'm
be
just
really
like,
photogenic.
I'll look at his face. What do you think? That's
But,
fine.
you
Yeah.
know,
Okay.
I think the brakes,
Okay.
brake handles should be.
What are the benefits of owning a scooter?
Never will, 'cause you have a
Well,
hydraulic and.
there are many, but the biggest one is
But don't you
fun.
want the field to be the
They're-
same?
No. you have a brake.
Whenever you get where it is you're going, you got a smile on your face, and that's a big thing. And part of the reason you have a smile on your face is that you didn't have to spend an hour trying to find a place to park it. Part of the reason is that, you know, it's kind of like that when you get that first bicycle, you know, that sense of freedom, that I could go anywhere, do anything. It's like a
All right, I
magic
pulled,
carpet. And it's the same
Gerald
kind of
off the
thing with
engine he was working
with a
on.
scooter. I mean, you
About
get it and
45
it's
minutes,
like,
we'll have this thing.
all of a sudden you just, even though you may have had cars and stuff like that, the ability to just get around almost instantly, it really is. It's very much like a magic carpet or something. It's just great fun. It's
Yeah.
easy. They get, you know, 100 miles a gallon, so
I figure
there's
it's just.
that.
Yeah,
Nice
that's
plus.
really, yeah.
But I think the big thing is fun and time. It will save, people that ride regularly will tell you consistently that they get around quicker than they do in a car. Because you're able to just take back roads.
Maneuver. Right.
And you get around places that, you know, congested areas, and it just makes it a lot easier to get around.
Do you ride them every day? Or
Almost every day. I don't, you know, there are days where I'm old and I get cold.
yeah.
If it's rainy, I limp out. But lots of days. Probably 250 days out of the year I'll ride.
How do you avoid interstates? Like, cause I know you can't ride them on the interstate, right?
You can.
You can.
Yeah, if you've got the right one, you can.
Uh-huh.
I ride mine on the interstate.
Oh wow.
I don't usually, but you can.
Okay.
There are, you know, the thing about Atlanta is that, you know, it's a beautiful city if you just get off the interstates.
Right.
Like, for example, if I want to go down to Georgia State, for example, you know, I can just go down Powers Ferry to Northside Drive and take Northside Drive right down to Marietta Street, take me right down to Georgia State. And I don't have to get on the express. I could get on the expressway, but that's a lot prettier ride. And, you know, and it may take a little longer going that route, but it's worth it. Because when I get down there, I don't have to really go through a whole lot of brain damage to park. So,
It's pretty simple.
yeah.
So, what does a Vespa scooter offer the rider?
Well, the biggest thing is freedom, I think. But there's also, particularly with Vespas, there's a good deal of pride of ownership that people take in them too.
Yeah.
Because Vespas are, you
They're
know,
like
the best
high-end.
of the best of the
I've
best.
heard that it's like a cult almost.
It
No,
is.
our journalism teacher, he was like, it's literally a cult. Like,
It is. It is.
it is.
Yeah.
Are you a part of the cult?
Yes. Yes. We're called Vespisti.
Are you serious?
yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. The Vespisti are the people that are Vespa enthusiasts. And yes, yes.
Very.
That's a real thing.
That's so interesting.
There's a great website, if you have some time to kill, called modernvespa.com. It's a bulletin board, you know, kind of like we used to have internet bulletin boards back in the
Yeah.
90s. Well, this one's still going on. And it still pretty much looks like they did back in the 90s. But it's an international, you'll have people on there from New Zealand and, you know, China, and just all over the world on this thing, and talking about their Vespas. And it's like this gigantic Vespa love fest. It's interesting reading.
Yeah.
And it's a very active forum. Very
Get everything
active.
from the front to the back.
It's pretty entertaining.
That's so interesting. So are scooters safe?
Well, they are as safe as a motorcycle can be, which is not, you know, I mean, the nature of, I mean, you go outside, it's not safe.
Yeah.
They are considerably safer than other motorcycles, just simply because they're just so much more responsive and so much more agile. Now Vespas, of course, come with ABS brakes and have a lot of good safety features and that kind of stuff that make them even safer than most scooters. But still, most scooters are safer than most motorcycles, just simply because, you know, if you stop and think about it,
We do have one,
if you were,
$47 though.
if you had a fly swatter, you'd have a lot easier time hitting, say, a blue jay than you would a mosquito. And it's the same kind of thing with the Vespa. I mean, you're small enough and agile enough to where a car has a hard time hitting you unless
Yeah.
you're just not paying attention.
That's true.
But you do have to accept the responsibility for not being where the car is when the car chooses to be there, because you can't count on them to accept that responsibility.
True.
But the good news is, if you're paying attention, they will come for you and try and hit you, but you can get out of the way
Yeah.
every time, or at least so far I've been able to get out of the way every time.
Yeah. What are the precautions that a rider should be familiar with prior to purchasing one?
Well, firstly, that the licensing requirements. A lot of people are misunderstand the licensing requirements. You know, Vespas are motorcycles, and you have a motorcycle license just like you would with any other motorcycle. And some people don't realize that, but you are supposed to do it. The other thing is that you want to understand the physical dynamics of riding a motorcycle, understand what makes them turn and how they brake and what happens, why a disaster occurs if you put too much pressure on either the front brake or the back brake, and how to avoid doing that. So those are definitely things you need to know. But also the safety, like for example, you'll always want to wear good sturdy shoes, you always want to wear gloves, always want to wear gloves. I mean, even if it's 100 degrees outside, you're wearing gloves because
In case you fall
your
off
finger,
or something.
well, it's just the finger, you know, it's just like operating a printing press. Any machine, the most likely thing to get injured are your fingers and your toes, so you want to keep them covered and protected. And then certainly you want to wear a helmet. While your head is much less likely to get injured than fingers or toes, the consequences are so much more severe
Yeah.
that you definitely want to wear a good helmet. But other than that, I guess the biggest thing I would recommend to anybody that's new to riding is to accept full responsibility for not getting hit.
Okay. So you think that you can definitely avoid it?
Oh yeah, you definitely can avoid it if you're paying attention. Because I mean, the people will pull out in front of you.
Right.
They will. I mean, they will do some crazy stuff. And I mean, there may be a point in time where I don't get to avoid it. I don't know. But so far, I've been able to avoid it every time. And
How long have you been riding them?
50, little over 50 years.
Really?
How many Vespas have you like gone through?
Uh,
Or like how long do you think they usually last?
Well, a Vespa, you know, a Vespa, an actual Vespa will last a long time. I mean, I've got some around here, like that green one sitting over there is a '64 model. There's a white one sitting over there that's from the early '60s. There's a bunch of them in the shop that are from the '70s and '80s, and you know, so they can go a long time. They don't. I mean, Vespas are kind of unique in that sense. They're kind of like Porsches. They don't. I mean, even if they wear out, you just fix them, and
Right.
they keep going. And they're, you know, you take a Vespa from the '60s today, it's worth 10 times what it cost new then.
Yeah.
And just like a Porsche
Yeah.
in that respect. And, you know, so they really don't really wear out. But you will start, you know, 50,000 miles or so, you'll start doing some more significant maintenance to them.
Right. So is a scooter more economical? I know you talked about this earlier, so I'm assuming yes, but it's more economical than a car or a truck?
By a long shot. I mean, like, for example,